All right, you guys, what is going on, and welcome back to the channel. So before we get into today's video of installing this gigantic turbo inlet in the car, I do have some updates for you guys, both good and bad, all good news and bad news. So we'll start out with the blob eye first. So yesterday I shot a video on getting the parent header installed on the car. I actually ended up taking it off, and I did sell that header and ordered a killer bee. I made an entire video on installing that, but to be honest, it's just a 15-minute video of me yelling about parent and how much I dislike parent products and whatnot, so I'm not gonna post that video. But the fitment on that header was awful. It was rubbing like entirely on the radiator fans, and it was either gonna catch the car on fire or melt the fans again. It happened on my 07 STI. And I should have learned the first time about buying that header, but I thought that Perrin may have revised and fixed the issues with their header, and they clearly have not. So if you do own an 04 to 07 STI, I don't recommend getting the Perrin E4 series or the big tube series header for this chassis. Fitment on it is just, it's trash. So I have a killer B1. It's already shipped. It should be here next week, so we can get that on the car. One less thing to worry about, but I don't suggest that parent header to anyone. Now, outside of that update for the blob eye, I do have an update for the 17 STI as well. The EG33 is starting to come back. Both the heads have already shipped, and they'll be here. So the heads shipped yesterday, they'll be here Sunday. You guys are seeing this video Saturday, so the heads will be here tomorrow. The short block should ship early next week. So we're getting it in a couple different pieces. We're getting the short block assembled, we're getting the heads assembled. So we're gonna have to go through there and actually put the head studs on the short block, bolt the heads up to the short block with the provided head gaskets from Outfront Motors. So as soon as we finish the blob eye build, we're gonna just transition directly into the 17 STI and starting to get the 6-cylinder put in that car, because the motor is coming back to us at this point. So the way that I foresee the 17 STI build transitioning is we're gonna do test fitting with the motor, get it in the car. We're gonna do the fuel system because I already have the entire fuel system here. So we get all the lines made, everything plumbed up, and get that knocked out. Once all of that's done, I want to start getting some of the timing stuff ordered for the car. We need to get the turbo ordered and the intercooler core, so that way we can take the car to the fabricator, so that way he can mock up our exhaust manifold, make the modifications necessary to the intake manifold, and do all of the other fabrication for like the intercooler piping and all the other good stuff, the downpipe and whatnot. So EG33 stuff is going to happen literally as soon as this car is tuned and done. And once it comes out of the garage, that one's gonna be coming in. Little more updates, then we'll jump into this. Sorry for all the updates, guys, but there's just a lot of them right now. So our replacement coilovers did come in for the blob eye also. This will be happening in another video, but we did get the BC BR series coilovers. I'm waiting on the brake rotors to get dropped off today, and the rear stainless steel brake lines, because for some reason we only have stainless steel on the front. So that'll be probably in the next video or something along those lines. But we have a lot more parts coming in for the car that we have needed. But today we're gonna be getting this FP turbo inlet installed. So I already tried like mocking this thing up in the car, and this is gonna be a huge pain to get installed. I can already foresee it. So what I'm thinking is I'm gonna pull off the TGVs over here. I'll mask up the block so that way nothing gets into the valves, and then move this wiring harness back out of the way, and then try to fit it over the turbo inlet once it's installed. It's just as much room as I can get in here to get this thing installed is gonna be what's needed. I might have to go to the extent of pulling the power steering pump off also, because this is a massive turbo inlet, you guys. This is an 84mm turbo inlet. It's a 3.3 inch. It is the biggest stock location turbo inlet, I believe, that goes on these cars, and it's not gonna be a good time to get installed. Like, as you can see already right there, the TGV is already protruding in front of the turbo. So let me start going through here. I'm gonna put it on a time lapse, start clearing out some of the stuff that's in our way, so that way we can get this turbo inlet installed. So far I feel like we're looking pretty good. So I pulled off the TGV over here. I pulled out the power steering pump just so that way I can get like everything mocked up. I pulled everything out of the way that needs to be out of the way. I am gonna trim the turbo inlet right there where that silver line is, because if you look up here, right where our TGV ends up here, I'm gonna bring this in just a hair. That way, this line right here will be sitting more or less a little bit more up there, and it'll clear, and it'll push this bend for the TGV back a little bit more. Plus, this sticks out a little far for the intake. As you can see, it goes right over the actual like radiator coupler too. So let me get this trimmed up. We'll test fit it back in. If everything fits, I'm gonna start reassembling and trying to work everything in around this. Like, this is a big boy turbo inlet to be fitting in here, you guys. If you're doing this turbo setup as well, just be prepared for a lot of trimming and a lot of test fitting and a lot of back and forth. All right, so I've pretty much figured out how to get this thing to fit at this point. So right here on the crossover tubes, this one is for coolant, this one is for PCV. This PCV line is the one that's getting in the way of getting the turbo inlet on. So all I'm gonna do is come in here and cut this bracket right there and cut the bracket right there, separating those two lines. Then I'm gonna put the bolt back in for the coolant crossover pipe for the O-ring in there. And by doing that, because this gets secured down to the upper coolant reservoir, so that's not gonna be moving anywhere. This rear one's gonna get secured down to the PCV fitting that comes off the head, so that's not gonna move around anywhere. We just need to get enough clearance to be able to get the turbo inlet fully past this, and so it's not like protruding out past it. So I'm gonna come in here with a Dremel. I'm just gonna cut this bracket off of here, get these two lines separated. I'm gonna leave this bracket piece here. Once those are separated, we should be good to go to get the turbo inlet in, and then we can start figuring out how to get the TGVs and the power steering pump back in. So far, not so bad. Look at that. Turbo inlet, it fits beautifully under the manifold. I'm not too concerned about that. Wow, this actually isn't as bad as people really made it out to be. Like, this hose keeps smacking me, but for the most part, like, it's pretty simple if you don't mind going the extra mile to take off the TGV, take off the power steering pump, cut that bracket, scoot a lot of stuff over. It's not that bad, but let me get this off real quick. So what I found to work best with this is obviously take off the TGV and put the TGV back on once the turbo inlet's in. It is gonna stab it a little bit right there, but you know what, so be it. It's gonna be a tight fit with that crossover pipe for the PCV system, but I'll finagle that on there somehow. I'm not looking forward to doing that one, but we got to get that fitting put back on there. For the most part, like, not bad. Just like I said, cut those brackets right there just so these lines aren't like super connected, or else that thing's really going to be trying to push inside of that. But you guys, our turbo inlet's on. It's not nearly as bad as people were making it out to seem. Like, don't get me wrong, it sucks, but not nearly that bad. So next up, I'm gonna run through here. I'm gonna get all this wiring kind of tucked back down there, get the fuel rails and the injectors back into our TGV, and then get all that situated, and then we'll start working on getting the manifold back on, which doesn't seem that bad either. We do have ample clearance with the manifold. I'm sure those 8mm phenolic spacers underneath of our TGVs are helping a tremendous amount, but let's keep going on this. Like, this is not nearly as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Y'all overhyped how hard it was going to be to get that thing in. I was really expecting a battle. It wasn't bad, guys. Come on, we're better than that. So, I mean, the hardest part was honestly just getting everything to clear right. Cutting that bracket down there from the crossover and separating them into two pieces made this so much easier. I did go to put the fuel rail back in, and I did tear one of the injector O-rings on there, so I do need to order 2 more of those. I'm just going to replace both of them since I have that fuel rail out. No big deal, they're like 60 cents each, but honestly, you guys, this was so much easier to put on than you guys were like making it out to be. I was expecting like a huge like battle and struggle with this thing, and I need to put this radiator hose back on so it's not flapping around everywhere, but for the most part, this was pretty straightforward and simple. So key things that I did realize when going through here is separate that bracket as much as you can, get the turbo inlet on. Once the turbo inlet's on, obviously tighten it down with the hose clamp back there. Once that's done, take the fuel rail off the TGV, put the TGV on. Once the TGV is on, then put the bracket and everything else back on there. You can throw your fuel rail back on if you want. Like I said, I have to wait. And then just get your intake manifold on. So the way I did it is your intake manifold sits on your TGVs with 4 studs. So I did 1 stud right here, 1 stud on the backside closest to the turbo inlet, and then I did the same thing over here just to locate the intake manifold. After I did that, it was as simple as just tightening everything down. So next up, I need to get the belt back on here, get this hose put back on its home right down there. And then I'm going to go through here and just start cleaning things up a little bit, getting rid of like bolts I'm not going to be using, getting some of the electrical connectors plugged back in, just some of that simple stuff just to clean things up in this engine bay a little bit more. So, Jesus. So let me run through, do that real quick, and then we'll keep going on this. Boing. All right, you guys, I think this is where I'm gonna stop tonight. I have to go set up for a live stream. I can't do much over here before like I assemble all this without the new O-rings for the injectors to get those in, because I need to be able to mock everything up. So I did get some more work done though, just in generality speaking. I got the vent line for the AOS plumbed up to the bottom of the intake manifold. Like I said, you guys will have a whole video on that one. The boost solenoid is hooked up now. All of the vacuum lines are done for that. I need to clean them up over there a hair. But overall, the turbo inlet really wasn't that bad to get in, you guys. Like, I feel like everyone hyped it up to be a lot worse than it actually was. Like I said, you trim those two little brackets to separate the vent line from the crossover pipe that supplies coolant and the PCV system. You split those, you can move that back port out of the way enough. You get the TGVs on, then you get the intake manifold on. Honestly, it was maybe like 45 minutes to an hour of getting this to actually fit in there. But hey, we're solid on that now. So our turbo inlet is in. Our turbo is all plumbed up with the exception of the intercooler piping and the downpipe, since I'm waiting on both of those still. But we're making good progress. I got all the vacuum lines hooked back up to the intake manifold as well, and the coolant lines going down here to the throttle body. So it wasn't difficult. It's just putting on OEM lines again. The bypass valve down there, you guys may have seen me like messing with the throttle body for quite some time. I was having difficulty getting everything to line up with the turbo inlet. That was probably the biggest struggle, was the bypass valve return going to the turbo inlet, just because there's not a whole lot of room. Here shortly, we'll probably be hooking up the rest of the PCV system for the AOS just to get that install knocked out. But our intake manifold is back on. That was the biggest thing I wanted to get accomplished today, and getting that turbo inlet back in the car. It's just, it almost looks like a fully complete motor again, which just gets me excited. So as close as we may seem to being done with the blob eye, we still have a ways to go. We still need to get the intercooler in, the downpipe in, the Killer Bee headers in. We need to get the suspension swapped over, the new brake rotors on, the new brake pads. We need to keep buttoning up the engine bay over here. We need to get the new O-rings in for the injectors. We still have a lot to do with this car, but I hope this makes your guys' FP 84mm turbo inlet stalls a lot easier, because it's not as bad as people make it out to be. You just got to be smarter, 10% smarter than the tools you're working with. But that's all I got for you guys on this one. So if you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, gray, cyan, aqua, turquoise, violet, chartreuse, any color of the rainbow, whatever color it turns for you guys. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit your boy up, because we're going to be making some power with the blob eye here. And we're going to be assembling our 1200 wheel horsepower capable EG33 here in the next, I don't know, a couple weeks. Once the blob eye gets done, we can put that motor together, get it fit up in the other STI. Oh, making some sauce. But like I said, that's all I got for you guys on this one. So with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, homies.